Go seek something that's out of your norm. And it could be reading 10 pages a day. It could be journaling for 1 page. But do something over the next 7 days that you have not been doing in the past couple months, period. And that could be in the gym. But do something that is out of your norm for the next week and see what opens up from there.
Dude, so first of all, I have to thank you for getting into running in some aspect, because I'm fully hooked. And I've always been somebody who's been running here, been running there. In 2021, I ran. In 2019, I ran. But this past year, I've really started to take it seriously again. And that correlates to when I started following you and started being like seeing it in my feed. And I'm totally inspired by what you do, and I'm so appreciative for you for just putting out your content, putting your face out there, documenting your journey, because I know firsthand it has helped me. So
I appreciate that. What was the way? What clicked for you?
It was nothing. It was not one piece of content.
Fair.
It was the way you keep showing up over and over and over again in your life. That it's like the consistency of it. Like the 20th time I see you on my feed, the 30th, I'm like, oh shit, I could do that too. And so because of that, I'm so excited to dive into your story. But first, I want some advice on my first training block for a marathon ever.
Good. Okay.
You know, I'm 18 weeks away from my first marathon ever. And I'm curious what advice maybe you would give yourself, or what advice you would give me, knowing me, to go into this to get the best result.
I love that. What I would tell you is, just like laying down a foundation for a business, a podcast, it takes time. Be consistent rather than great at times in your training. I think the biggest thing I learned, Danny, was that you have to run slow. Like, you want to stay healthy. The best thing in sports is availability. You don't want to be sidelined with injuries. And I think something I did a bad job of was ego running, because I'm looking at other people's splits and I'm like, yo, I want to run 7:20 pace. I want to run 6:30 pace, whatever. But on the easy days in your training block, like, it should be effortless. It should be boring. It should get to the point where you're just like, damn, like, I got to show up for 5 miles, slow as shit. And don't even look at your watch. I think if I took that piece of advice right there of just build out the foundation, do it slow, but over time, you're going to gain this level of a foundation that's going to allow you to stay injury free, to do this because you want to do it, not because you're forced to do it. So many people I know, man, they sign up for a marathon and they feel like it's a job. They feel like they're forced to do it. And I'm like, dude, understand that there's people out there that wish that they had 2 legs to run. They wish they had a healthy body and a mind and a spirit to be able to do this. So don't think of it as a burden. Think of this as like, yo, I'm privileged as fuck to have a healthy body that can run 26 miles, run 13 miles, run 5 miles, whatever the distance is. But I would say keep it really slow and easy on the easy days. And then when there's days where you're running fast, be intentional with the speed work. But I think too much early on, so many people, like, they're like, I need to just run fast and hard. And what that does is it doesn't let your body have enough time to heal itself, because then you're stacking on all these days of running, and then shin splints happen, plantar fasciitis. And these are injuries that runners go through all the time because their body is not adapted yet to the stimulus, to the friction, to the pavement. And until your body gets that foundation, it's going to talk to you. So just keep that easy. And when shit happens, just be mindful of it, right? Seek out the right healthcare professionals, PTs. A lot of running injuries are overused. So it's not like it's like you're breaking anything. It's more just like, yo, you've been putting a lot of freaking steps in and now your body's talking to you.
Yeah. And well, it's so remarkable to me because 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you didn't even consider yourself a runner. And that's a wild thing to go from that to now being known and recognized as one of the most recognizable runners in the world. Like, how does that feel?
It's humbling. And I mean, I'm just full of gratitude when I go to races and people are like, yo, like, you helped me start my journey. You helped me sign up for this race. So many people told me that in San Francisco. And it was probably the most interactions I've had with people, like, post race. Like, I couldn't leave the fucking finish line area because, like, I was just like, everyone's like, yo, I want to can I get a picture? And it was, dude, super fucking rewarding. At times I don't realize, Danny, how much impact is happening, honestly, because I'm sometimes in my own cocoon and I don't let the highs get me too high, and I don't let the lows of the negativity and the hate that I also get me too low. And I just stay in this cocoon of my own like self-awareness and self-esteem of like, who the fuck is Matt as a human? But I'd be lying. Like this past race in San Francisco, I'm like, I was kind of goosebumps, like blown away of how many people were like, yo, literally signed up for this race because of you, because of your content. And then it started making me realize, I'm like, damn, like there's so much impact to be made in this world in a positive way. And if you look at mainstream media, if you look at social, like most times people are seeing negative shit. And if you're someone out there that has any ounce of positivity or optimism in you, it's almost your duty to try to share that shit to the world so other people can feel what that feels like. It's a good feeling when you wake up in the morning and you're like, yo, this is gonna be a good fucking day. I don't know how else to like brainwash or like try to download someone's software to be like, to think like that. But if more people actually had that framework, Danny, I feel like this world would be a much better place. So
the first time you considered yourself a runner was it the Murph or was it sometime after that? Give people a little breakdown for the story.
For sure. I mean, I played college football, so like I've been a runner, like I ran, but I don't think the endurance runner, that identity, didn't start to happen until like I probably signed up for my first race. And that happened in 2021, Philadelphia Marathon in December. That was the first race I actually was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a bib, I'm gonna buy the registration and do the whole thing. But prior to that, Danny, I mean, like I did challenges during COVID. I did a lot of running during COVID. But for me, it wasn't about getting the bib, getting the freaking medal. Like, I just wanted to challenge myself on some Goggins shit because that's really where the foundation came from, right? I listened to David Goggins, guys like Nick Bare, Jesse Itzler, and I'm like, hold on, like these are seemingly like ordinary guys that, and obviously Goggins is a SEAL. Nick Bare is a former Ranger, so they're not ordinary, but they had a foundation from not always being these people. And it just interested me to like, I was just like, yo, like, I wonder what I could do. I played college football. Like, damn, I'm pretty fucking tough. I'm thinking like I'm pretty tough. And the Murph was the first like challenge I did. If you don't know what the Murph is, it's for Lieutenant Mike Murphy, the Operation Red Wings. It's a workout that is now like ran by the CrossFit community. It's a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and another mile. Typically it's done with a weighted vest. I did that 30 days in a row.
30 days in a row.
30 days in a row. So over that course of 30 days, I ran 60 miles. I did 3,000 pull-ups, 6,000 push-ups, 12,000. You do the math, right? And I didn't realize what I was doing. That was my foundation.
But what made you say that you were going to do that?
I literally saw someone else on YouTube do the challenge that completed it. And I was just like, I just got laid off as a trainer. I was living in Maryland back in my mom's house in 2020. And I was like, yo, I don't have a gym. Like, what else am I going to do? Like, I don't want to just sit around and drink. I don't want to just sit around and do nothing. Like, personal health and like, for me, is at the forefront of what I do. It's about like one of my values, right? And I wanted something that was going to challenge me, but did not require dumbbells, did not require a beautiful facility like the Collective or whatever, right? It's a gritty workout that you can do anywhere. So that's what was like, it was calling me. I'm like, how do I keep myself accountable? By having the least amount of friction in my fitness, and all I needed was a pair of shoes and a pull-up bar to complete that workout for 30 days in a row.
And you posted that every day or
every
at
day,
the end of the challenge?
Every day. It was shit content. People were like, what the fuck? Like, I would just like time lapse all the push-ups. Because, dude, it gets boring. Like, who wants to see someone do shitty push-ups? My push-ups, like, my form on all this, Danny, was not the best. I'll be honest. And even when I did the Murph on Memorial Day, like, because when you're around an environment of people, like I did it at, you saw me. That was the day we connected in person finally, at Squatch. And you're doing this with other people and you're like, all right, I want to go fast. I want to fucking beat the time, whatever. But even when I was doing it on my own, I'd be honest, like I didn't have the most strict pull-ups or the most strict push-ups. But the thought for me was just like putting in the reps in, staying consistent. And there was just like this internal motivation for me to be like, yo, no one's asking me to do this shit. But there was something driving me to be like, yo, I want to hold myself accountable. I'm like now listening to Goggins about talking about discipline. What is self-discipline? It's doing things even when no one's asking you to do it. I was a disciplined football player because my team, I was accountable to my team, right? The coach says you need to be here 10 minutes before the meeting starts or you're late. Okay, if we don't do that, we run as a receiver group. So I'm like, oh, fuck, now I got to be accountable to other people because if I fuck up, now these other people are having to do the things because of my mistake. But I think what people don't understand with self-discipline is like holding yourself to a caliber that no one's really asking you to do besides yourself. And it's hard because as humans, like we all form lazy habits. We all get into a rut at times. But the ability to have self-discipline is something much stronger than just discipline in general. And I think throughout this process, I learned that for me, that's also something I put on the forefront. It's like, yo, I want to be the most disciplined mother effer, because at the end of the day, I can always fall back on that.
It's crazy because you weren't always that way. When a coach asked you to run a 400 meters, you only ran 300 and walked the rest.
100%.
So I think that's really exciting for people to hear, is like, oh, wow, Matt didn't have this mindset always. And there was a part of him that was like, that couldn't even accomplish one lap around the track.
Period. And I think I love this Jim Quick quote of, the only limits we have are the ones we believe in. So many times humans are putting limits on themselves. And to your point of that track story, Danny, like, I knew that I could do it. like, dude, we like, I ran, like, football condition was 110. It was 110s. You run 110 meters, you rest for 40 seconds, and you run again. So it's not that I was unable to complete one lap around a track for time. It was just that I didn't want to do it. So many people don't want to put their health at a forefront. So many people don't want to move their body, or so many people don't want to get out of the relationship or get out of the job because it's hard. It's not easy to fucking do that. But for me, it was a mindset thing. I lost that race before I even fucking ran it because I told myself, I'm not capable of this. I don't want to do this. I don't want the coach to ever put me in this race, so I'm going to fucking fail on purpose. So I think for most people, I hope it does excite them that, like, your circumstance in the current state is not forever. We can change as humans. Our brain is very malleable. Our bodies are malleable. Like, you see transformations in the fitness side of a lot of humans that literally change their entire physique. It baffles me that people don't think that they can do that with their mindset. And I think for me, Danny, more than my physique, it's the internal framework that then shifted all those years ago from that kid that was, I think I was 16, I was a junior. So 16 years old, that was so consumed as a football player that he couldn't imagine being anything else. And that limit stopped me from achieving a lot of things and excelling in school. I cheated on everything in school because I was like, I'm a football player. I'm a jock. I don't have to fucking do that. And that framework is toxic and it's not healthy. And as humans, we should be trying to be growth oriented versus being closed off. And for a long time, Danny, I was closed off to anything that wasn't related to football.
Why?
It was just a passion. Like, being Asian American, growing up in a space where I wasn't, like, always accepted. I was kind of that, like, everywhere I lived. Jersey was diverse. I moved to Vegas, less diverse. And I've kind of, like, me and my brother, like we stuck out in terms of being Asian in a community that there wasn't that much representation. When I gravitated towards sports, it came natural to me. And it was the one time I felt like I'm fucking being accepted. Not because of what I look like, but because of my talent. And I think there was levels of that connection that, like, made me feel like this is my value prop. This is how I'm going to add value to the world. Like, I wanted to be the first Asian American football player, period. It never happened, but, like, that was just a thought in my head. I'm like, damn, like, Jeremy Lin's playing basketball? Like, that's pretty dope. So I think that's why, like, and dude, I loved football, like, period. It was my identity. It was something I cared deeply about. My mom never asked me to, like, practice football. I just fucking did it because I wanted to. So it was that element, all of those ingredients, maybe my identity, maybe the race play, maybe the actual talent of it and getting validated from my talent. It then got me consumed in this space of, like, this is what I want to do. And this is what I want to put my time and energy into. And looking back on it, there was a level of obsession that was happening in those days that got me to earn a college scholarship. Now, that obsession has turned into business, into running, into other athletics. But even in running, like, I love doing things that are outside of just running. So for me, it's like, I want to be that obsessed in everything that I touch and or do. Like, in this conversation, I'm like, I'm so dialed, like this. Like, I have shit going on all over the place, right? In my, like, in my actual world, but, like, in this current state, I'm obsessed with this conversation, this moment. That's it.
So there's one thing to do it, and then there's another thing to document it. It's like,
It's a fact.
you know, like, you could quite easily have the obsession to accomplish these feats, but I think there's something else that happens when you document it where it becomes almost more difficult to do, because now people are watching. Now you have added pressure. Now you're held to a higher standard as you continue to excel. And like it changes something. This conversation would be one thing, but this conversation recorded would be a different, like, it's just different. And there's something to be said for that. So like, why did you go down that path of recording everything? Did you always know you were going to put yourself out and document yourself like that?
No.
When was the moment you realized?
I started consuming a lot of Gary. At
Gary
the time,
Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk. I refer to Gary like people are gonna just know who the fuck is Gary. Gary V, damn it. This was when I was still working my sales job at this company called Shred It. And this company was not like a dream passion. It wasn't a dream job. I just kind of checked the box off. Oh, I graduated a business marketing degree. I'm going to try to figure it out. And like I don't know what I really want to do, but this position let me kind of dabble into sales, into management, and do a little bit of everything, which I think for a lot of people is healthy. Like, go see what corporate America is like before you want to just become an entrepreneur. Because like most people aren't cut out for this shit, if I'm being honest. So to answer your question of like, how did I get in the mindset of wanting to document? I read Crushing It by Gary Vee, where it talked about leveraging your interests on the social media platforms that have the highest attention. At the time, a lot of it was Instagram, a lot of it was Twitter, a lot of it was Facebook, and you could build businesses on these platforms based on Game of Thrones, podcasting, running, fitness. Vine was also popular. So there was all these platforms in the current state, and that book may have gotten, I don't know, 2012, 2013, I don't know when it was written. And it intrigued me of like, oh shit, brand and building personal brand might actually be valuable. At the time, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, I didn't really know those guys, like even on the social webs, but I knew that I knew them on Vine. Like I knew that they were like blowing up on that platform. And obviously there was YouTubers as well, people like Casey Neistat that have been in the game for such a long time. But honestly, I didn't really get motivated by those guys. It was more from Gary's like immigrant story of like, yo, grew up in Queens. My dad lives in Queens. I grew up in Queens. Immigrant family, like having to move here, not have everything, live in a studio apartment. Like I felt that energy. And something clicked with me of like, hold on. I had this passion for football. I had this fucking obsession over this one thing. Imagine I could turn that into what I actually do. The first thing I did when I started making videos, Danny, was I was making training football content for other football players. So when I got back into the fitness space of being a trainer, at first I didn't even have a certification. I was literally using my knowledge as a college football player, which is a lot of practitionership, but not much documentation. But I knew it because coaches put me through barbell complexes. They put me through the speed and agility drills. Receiver coach would put us through receiver drills. So like I had knowledge of just me doing it. Now it was the question of, can I coach this? Can I teach it to other people, depending on their level of skill sets as an athlete? But that moment clicked when I was consuming more of Gary Vee's content, read Crushing It, but then I started to put that into practice of like, hold on, I'm like familiar with Instagram. I had if you scroll far enough on my Instagram, it's all football pictures. I was that football player that was like only gonna post the dopest picture in the game or in practice or a highlight. And at that point, Instagram didn't even release videos yet. So for me, I always had an idea of understanding content from the lens of how do I broadcast myself as a football player? But then I took that same energy into how do I broadcast myself as a personal trainer? So that's how all of this shit really started.
I stumbled across a creatine video that has, I think, 1.8 million views.
Danny, still the most viewed video on my fucking video. That was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that video was fucking recorded and filmed on an iPhone and edited on iMovie. And now I have a whole team that does my shit. And none of our views have even hit close to 1 million views.
Wow. So that idea came from just looking at the landscape. How did you stumble across that one?
The creatine one?
Yeah.
Another influencer, someone else on YouTube made that video.
I think that's something that I think more people need to understand is like the best stuff, just look at what is already working and create it from your own
lens,
point of view. Yeah.
Danny, I think that's I'm so glad you said that shit. So many people get mad like, oh, you're copying their content. You stole this idea from them. First of all, guys, like the shit's on the internet. It's not stealing. It's readily available. Like people put that out there on purpose because they want it to share it to people. Now, if someone draws inspiration and wants to make it their own, make a twist to it, like I'm not the first person that made a mic'd up running interview. That's been done, right? But it's so funny how people get butthurt on that of like, oh my God, you stole so-and-so's idea. At the end of the day, if you think like that, then you're already in a bad framework of scarcity. Oh my God, like I can't win because so-and-so. No, like everyone can win and have their pie too. So I think to answer that question, Danny, it's like you should draw inspiration from people that you look up to or people that you see, content, business advisors, entrepreneurs, and make it your own recipe. I take a little bit of Gary, a little bit of Goggins, a little bit of Jay Shetty, a little bit of whoever, and I make it resonate to how it resonates to me. Not like just taking Gary's exact script and being like, I'm going to regurgitate it. Like, no, it wouldn't make sense. Like I would put in analogies of me running, of how it feels like to accomplish a 100-mile race, like things that actually showcase and resonate with my story. And I think for people, that's good. It's a healthy inspiration to draw like feedback from other people. And if you look at the music industry, that's the most primo of spaces that do that. There's so many dope songs now that people our age don't even realize were hits from the 70s and the 80s, but we just don't know because we didn't hear it back then. So I don't think it's copying. I think at the end of the day, as creators, it's your job to put your own twist to it. And if you're a creator that thinks that someone's stealing your shit, you need to start getting out of that framework of, at the end of the day, you put it out there. So don't be mad if someone makes it better. If anything, you should applaud that shit. Danny, you know how many people I see that do mile 1, mile 2? I'm like, dope. I'm like, in my mind though, I'm like, yo, make that even better though. Because I feel like that, even for me, I don't do that. I don't do those splits as much as I used to. Because I realize I'm like, there's different elements of what I can communicate versus just my time. And I think people get caught up in what's working instead of testing new shit. And as a creator, you should always be trying to test new shit, even though it doesn't perform as well on the vanity metrics.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to the fact that when you're just getting started, when you're at the base level, it's easier and it's more helpful to get you going when you can see somebody and do the basics of, all right, mile 1 and run it and just show the time. And then it's like, as you become more skilled in the content creation game, you're able to let loose a little bit and be like, all right, I'm going to add this or add that. And I think where you're at right now is probably like you've built an incredible foundation. And now it's like, how do you test things and take it to the next level? And that's an exciting place to be. And I love watching the way you continue to innovate and take things, because I'm not really in the running world at all. It's basically you and Dom Fusco are the only 2 runners that I follow.
Love Dom.
And yeah, I listened to both of your podcast episodes that you've done with him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's interesting how when you're in that world, you see what every runner is doing and what every runner is not doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in that world really. And I'm seeing you and I'm like, this is the entire running world to me. You know what I mean? and so it's funny that, you know, like there are games that people play, but they also might not realize that there might just be people who follow you because they like you and not any other runners.
100%. Yeah. And I think that I've realized that even now, Danny, like there are people that just like, whether it's like, they don't even run, but they just watch my shit. It could be like, oh, I just feel like I get good energy watching your videos, or like, I just like, it entertains me. And I've now realized that like, you know, when I first started making videos, like Gary said this thing of like, there's 3 types of content: educational, entertainment, and inspirational. And for such a long time, I was in the like inspiration side, kind of like educational of like, yo, this is kind of how I recovered from injuries for running or things of that sort. But entertainment by far has the highest viewership. And if you look at humans, we like going to the movies. We like going to music shows. Why? Because it's entertaining. It's not that it's teaching us something. How many people are going to a conference versus going to go to Coachella? Yeah. Significantly more. So the more that you're able to add different elements of content of, oh, let me do the Chipotle burrito challenge. Let me eat 2 burritos and go run a sub 6-minute mile. It works so well because it's entertaining. The thought of eating, first of all, Danny, I've never eaten 2 fucking Chipotle burritos, let alone to try it that day and then go run a sub 6-minute mile. I was just like, this is ludicrous. But the point is, for a creator, start to dabble into areas that are slightly uncomfortable. Like me going in inspirational Goggins mode, it was because like that was my first download. Right? In terms of my software, I'm like, oh, Goggins is doing this stay hard shit, get after it. That's dope. But that doesn't resonate with a large demographic of people. it's a small subset. So when I got that download, I'm like, all right, now I have Goggins downloaded in my software. I don't need to keep regurgitating it. Now let's take a dabble of like my buddy Isaiah Photo. Great example of fucking entertaining, very stimulating content, similar to Mr. Beast style flow of like, it gets you locked in to want to watch the rest of it. And I think the more I've iterated my creative process and testing new stuff, because I'm willing to take the feedback of it not performing well, has been a big part of like my growth and my also comfortability of not getting burnt out in this space. The most people that get burnt out, I feel like, is because they keep doing the same thing and it's not exciting for them anymore. And I only want to do shit that fires me the fuck up. And once that flame is not there anymore, I'll just do less of it. Not that it would be stupid for me, Danny, to just say, I'm done running. But that fire is still lit. And I still have new ways to kind of keep it going, you know?
Yeah. Do you think you would have enough self-confidence in yourself to, if you didn't enjoy running, for
100%.
to just be like, all right, I'm not a runner anymore?
100. And Danny, I would, whatever the next thing is, I would document the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
That's my framework. Like, I'm not going to stop. And in running, it's running right now. But just like how football was my X amount of years through those days, this might have a life. This might have a cap at some point. And once it does, I'll get into the next thing and I'll document it the same exact way. People always are like, yo, what's your exit strategy? Like, do you think you can keep this going forever? I'm like, I'm not selling my personal brand to anyone. So until I'm 6 feet under, I'm going to do what I do. And until it becomes like, oh my God, like I don't want to like once it starts to feel like an actual job, then I might feel like, all right, ask me then. But in the current state, Danny, I'm like, hey, if I stop getting into running, there'll be something else and I'll document that as well.
Why are you so ambitious?
I think it's because the way I grew up with a single mom. I had no handouts. I saw her hustle to put food on the table, to put shelter over our head, and I didn't want to live an ordinary life. Now, I don't know why, in the sense of like how, I even think, honestly, Danny, my ambition level is not even as high as other people. But it's a good balance of me, of like being able to live a life, but also like find purpose. But I think the real thing is, it is fulfilling for me. Not just like hitting a time goal at a marathon or hitting an X amount in business, right? It's just like the pursuit of something. For me, it was football until I was 22. Then there was 2-3 years where I wasn't ambitious about shit. I worked a sales job and I'm like, damn, like everyone hated what they did, but they were just waiting for that bonus, waiting for the end of the year. So the ambition in me was started as an athlete, saw my mom hustle and just see what it's like to be a single mother. And then through football, that was the ROI for my ambition. Go earn a college scholarship. Help your parents put you through school. Once that was done, that ambition didn't leave. I just had to take the energy and put it into something else. Now, why am I like that? It's a good fucking question. But I think it's ingredients from my childhood, in addition to wanting more than what I had with growing up. And I think that's where it stems from.
You mentioned the 2 to 3 years there where you didn't feel ambitious at all. And I'm curious if somebody's listening to this right now and they want to get to the place you're at, full of positivity, energy, enthusiasm for life, and excitement, what advice could you give them?
I think the first thing would be to understand that you can change, that your current circumstance is not going to be forever. The second piece of advice would be to start being curious. Whether that means listening to new podcasts, reading different books, changing the inner circle that you're in, the smallest steps need to happen when you're building this foundation. Most people want the 30-day fix, and it's just not reality. If you're in a circumstance, if you're in an environment that's not conducive for what you're trying to do and who you're trying to become, you need to start putting yourself in environments that are like that. And in the current world, we have so much technology and access to information that whoever you look up to, online or in real life, has some form of an option for you to consume their content. Whether it's through social, whether it's through pods, whether it's through a book, you need to go seek it though and have enough curiosity and understanding that you can change your framework and your life decisions, but it's all on you. That would be a tip. But for most people, it's hard. Like, that's fucking hard. It's like, okay, Matt, like, you sit there now, like, you're in Austin, like, okay. But I think as ground level as that is, it's taking 10 minutes a day to seek your curiosity in whatever form or fashion. Once you do that 10 days for 30 days, see if you can, once you do that for 10 minutes for 30 days, ask yourself, can I do this for 20 minutes? Can I do this for 30 minutes? And continue to kind of seek that. And you'd be shocked at what you can accomplish.
One of the things that's really helped me is having a mantra or something to repeat to myself over and over again when I'm in those places. I know for one bit of my life when I was really down, it was I love myself. And I got that from Kamal Ravikant's Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And now it's build the base is what I'm repeating to myself over and over and over again when I'm on these runs. Just build the base, build the base. I know, like, I'm going slow. It doesn't matter. Build the base. I'm curious for you, are there any specific mantras or affirmations or things you repeat to yourself often to help you be the best version of yourself? And particularly on the runs as well, because I know you do a lot of these runs without any headphones.
Yeah. One, I love to build a base for you, especially for the running shit. That's a fucking great one. Honestly, Danny, the one that sticks out to me, but it's not really mine, it was, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when you're done. And that one sits home with me a lot in the races. Because when you get to that mile 22 and, like, everything in your fucking system is telling you to just, like, Joe, stop. Like, like, yo, what... You know, like, what's like you've ran so far already, like, just stop for a second and then keep going, right? Like, everything in your system from your mind to your body is telling you, like, yo, just give yourself a break. Like, you might hurt something, like, you're gonna cramp, all these things. But that mantra, and I heard Goggins say it, but he got it from someone else too, of don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. Because for me, I can always put myself in that mode of what it feels like to cross that finish line. And after you stop moving and you catch your breath, you realize, like, it's going to be okay. It just fucking sucks in this moment and you have 4 more miles to go. But that has always been something that has been in my head in tough times during a run or a race. Now, I don't, like, say that every day though on an easy run, right? It's not really relatable because I'm not in that much suffering. I think the biggest thing for me on the easier days, Danny, is more around being present, right? Like, sometimes it's me just telling myself, like, be present, like, right here, right now, this next footstep. Don't even think about the 3 miles or the emails I have to respond to. It's just like, I run in the morning because it's solitude. I don't listen to music. I don't really go run with a lot of people when I'm in Austin, honestly. It's funny because I actually am part of more run clubs outside of Austin than I am in Austin. And at times it's because Austin's like my sanctuary. I show up for the world sometimes too much, and I need that time to be in solitude, to be working on myself, to make sure I can show up. So a lot of times on my mantras on my runs here are just be present.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense as you continue to progress. You know, you've accomplished some incredible feats in the past 3 or 4 years in terms of physical. You know, you've done the 4x4x48. You did the Murph, like we mentioned before. You did a 50-mile run. You did a 100-mile run. You've done multiple marathons, 6 marathons in 6 months. Which one of those accomplishments are you most proud of?
The next one.
Okay, Tom Brady. People ask me about my favorite podcast, and I just say the next one. And I love that. But what sticks out in terms of what you learn from the most in one of those, or like a key lesson from one of those specifically?
No, 100%. And I'm like pseudo serious, but like joking in a little bit. But the Grindstone 100-mile race, it's almost unfathomable. Like, to the naked eye, like, I don't even talk about it because, like, it's not like something like, oh, like, I go to the bar and I'm like, yeah, I ran 100 miles. Like, I don't even mention half the shit I do because it's not worth me explaining. You know? Like, to the normal person, running a marathon is fucking ludicrous, let alone 4 times the distance. What I learned in that race, Danny, is that we truly are capable of so much more as humans. I was down and out at mile 61. I legitimately could not jog anymore or put any pressure on my right knee because I had a really tight IT band that was basically on the side of my leg up to my glute that was not like working. I could not jog anymore. It was so fucking tight. So I had to walk. And we were going down this 4-mile decline because in the middle of the night, you have to climb 4 miles. But people don't understand. In an ultra, there's a lot of walking, jogging, hiking. It's not just running. Only if you're a savage winning these races do you run all of it. But when you're going down a hill, it sometimes hurts just as much as going up because your quads are getting smashed and you're almost like putting brakes on going down a steep hill in a car. And that same feeling of like straining your quads and your like everything in the front of your leg, it just was excruciating. At 61, I was at an aid station and there was a gentleman that came up to me and was like, he's like, are you stopping? Are you quitting? He's like, and I was like, no. And he just gave me this little story of like, he was in a 100-mile race and he quit at mile 65 and he said it was the biggest regret of his life.
Oh my God.
And at that point, I was already ahead of schedule. So it wasn't like I was in detriment of like not like hitting the actual court race. But how I felt at 61 and then 20 miles later feeling better, Danny, was this awakening similar to Goggins on that 100-mile race that he had of like, oh shit, my last 10 miles were faster than my previous 25. I actually was able to run. I fucking sprinted into the last finish mile of the Grindstone 100. So the biggest takeaway from that experience was like, even when I'm fucking exhausted in business because of travel, because of anything, fitness, a race, a marathon, like I literally put it into perspective of like, yo, I've been in the ringer way fucking worse. And it's like that cookie jar that Goggins talks about of like, people forget about how savage they are. Whether you're a mom and you had 3 kids, you had 3 fucking kids. You're a savage. Whether you like to believe it or not, you are. So for me, it was that moment I realized that I'm like, yo, I've been through the ringer and it was through a choice, like chosen suffering that Williamson talks about a lot. And when I feel down and out, I'm like, I've been in worst case scenarios. So that takeaway from Grindstone 100, it allowed me to even open up further of like, what is possible from the human body and the spirit and the mind. And more, I want to seek like how much more of that is available without really injuring myself or like torturing myself or disrespecting the body because I want to live up to 100, but I also want to understand what we can do as humans. That's where like my messaging compared to what Goggins is a little different, where like I want this to be a sustainable practice for most people. There's powerful things about running a 100-mile race, but most people won't ever do it. And you probably don't need to do that to go live up to 100. But understanding that I'm capable, that humans are capable of doing that, it gives me room internally to be like, yo, there's more that we can accomplish.
Dude, just to go from 4 years ago not running to accomplishing that, running 100 miles, overcoming your injury in that moment to go to the next level, like that speaks to mental toughness, that speaks to resilience, and that's remarkable. Coming from the place where I'm at, where I've been running for 4 months and I'm like, I can't even fathom that. And I think a lot of it is due to the voice in the head of like, don't get hurt, don't be careful, is a voice I think that personally I've grown up with. And that served me a lot. Like I'm safe, but I also want to push that and be like, all right, how careful do I really need to be? And put myself under uncomfortable positions and continue to push it. So you've done it. And how would you recommend somebody continuing to push the envelope on what they're capable of?
Yeah, it's risk mitigation, right? Like it's why people have health insurance. I think just like in the weight room, there's progressive overload. You're putting on micro stressors by adding in increments of weight. In this example, it could be increments of miles. It could be increments of a challenge. Oh, if a marathon sounds daunting, then yeah, like put the fucking 5K in front of you first. Tackle that, then do the 10K. Then try to race the 10K, right? So like there's the micro wins ahead of the next bigger challenge that I think people should take as small micro wins versus trying to eat the whole apple, eat the whole pie of a marathon. Take advantage of the 5K. Eat that. Get fucking great at that. And then keep progressing from there. In terms of the mindset around it, though, it's a level of belief. If you don't think that it's possible in your own head, it's never going to happen. It doesn't matter how much Goggins you listen to or how much fucking me or Nick Bear or whoever you listen to. You need to have an internal belief in yourself that like, yo, I might not be ready right now, but in a year, in 4 years, in 10 years, who knows? I might have a fucking shot. And just having that shot, it's like Rocky. It's a puncher's chance. You fucking put your fists up, you keep jabbing, and that hook can happen for anyone. You never know when your breakthrough is going to happen, but you have to put yourself, build the base, lay the foundation out for yourself to at least have a chance for it. Most people are ludicrous. They're like, I want a 30-day program to run a marathon. I'm like, you're crazy. Don't fucking do that because you'll hurt yourself. So there's a balance of once you build out your base and you have a level of understanding of your own body, because the body awareness in this case is the most important thing. Like humans know when they're really pushing or not. And fitness is the best way to test that. You want to see how much shit you got? Go hard at a workout. And then the next day, go light, go easy. And you'll have the own awareness of your body of like, oh, today was a light day. I didn't really go that crazy because you shouldn't be going hard as shit every day in anything that you do, whether it's CrossFit, running, weight training, like whatever it is. There should be a balance of, I just need to stay consistent over a long period of time because that's really where the results come. And then I might throw in a powerlifting competition or a race in between these little quarters of my year. But it'd be ludicrous to try to run the marathon every day and be like, I'm going to perform at my highest peak. So I think for people in terms of risk mitigation, put small challenges in front of you, start to tackle them and build your self-confidence to then allow you to have a belief that you can go do something bigger or more. And that's kind of like, as simple as that might sound, it is doing that. It's like putting something small, accomplishing it, and then seeing that where that takes you.
Other than the consistency piece of it, what do most new runners get wrong?
I think it's not following a plan. Similar to me. Like I was just like, oh, I've watched enough Nick Bear. I could just like take his workouts and then apply it to myself, not knowing that Nick's been training hard as fuck for however many years. What's he saying, right? Or like, you know, we don't fail to plan, we plan to fail. Whatever that saying is, right? And I think for running, it's very similar. Like, it's very easy to just be like, oh, I'll go on maybe I'll run 2-3 days a week. I'll do chill miles. It's easy to say that, but sometimes it's nice to see the progression of what you're building. If the first week you run 10 miles, the next week you run another 10 miles, the next week you might want to try 12 miles, right? And having a plan of any case, and I'm not saying go find a coach online or pay an instrumental amount. I'm just saying go online. There's free resources to train for a 5K and start to follow that as a base structure, or maybe customize that base to fit into your lifestyle. If you like lifting 4 days a week and you only want to run 2 or 3 days, then find a program that fits into your calendar to allow you to stay consistent, but at least have something that you can like layer as a foundation of like, yo, this is what I did the past 30 days. This is what I did for the past 60 days. So the consistency, 1000%. I think having a plan definitely helps. And then seeking feedback and insights from people that are maybe a little bit above you. Go to a run club. Maybe seek out people online of like, yo, like I have a question on this or whatever it might be. Like run club is probably the most accessible. Every city that runs, or any city, has some form of a run club, and people that are in that club that ran marathons, that ran ultras, that ran 5Ks. So they're going to be willing to share their information more times than not. You just have to show up. So if you really feel like you have no fucking community, if you really feel like you don't know what you're doing, stay consistent first of all, find a plan online, and then layer that with an actual community that can help you.
Yeah, there was a key point for me when I stopped running as consistently in June of this year. And I was like, oh, I need to change this. I need some accountability to someone. And I hired Jeff Cunningham's assistant coach. And I'm like, this is amazing. You know, easy runs, got it mapped out on the schedule, hit it, and have the accountability. And that was like a turning point. I know you mentioned you don't necessarily need a coach, but for me, it was a game changer and was the thing that pushed me over the edge to be more consistent and to really help myself. Dude, you are like one of the most positive people in the world, it seems like, which is amazing. And I resonate with that energy. I'm curious, like, what was the last bad day you had? And take us through that. Because I think that might give some perspective to Matt Choi that people might not otherwise see or realize.
Yeah, I mean, they happen often. Whether it's a business thing, a family thing, like I think the most realistic that probably will resonate is like the bib mule shit that happened to me. Like in terms, if I could think about a day where I felt like shit, it was the day after that Houston Marathon in January. This article got written about me, and I'm here sitting there. I'm in my apartment. I'm like reflecting on like, fuck, like I made a mistake, and now there's a lot of opinions about who the hell Matt is. And I knew that these opinions were not true, but I'd be lying if there wasn't a little bit of doubt in my own mind of like, fuck, like I screwed up, you know? Now, how that day happens for me is more just a level of self-reflection. Like when bad shit happens to me, I bottle it inwards to figure out a way on how I can reflect on it and improve. And that is an extreme example. Oh, you're getting harsh criticism as a creator. And now I'm having to deal with backlash from brands that I work with, from businesses that I'm like a part of. And that just sucks as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as a human, on the human level of like, damn, people that had trust in you or the reputation that you had, now it's slightly diminished. So as any human, Danny, like I start to question my own values, my own morals. So that day was one of the harshest in the sense of I had to come into reality of understanding that like we are all human. Now what am I going to do about it? And I think that piece for most people is what I would challenge them to think is if you just got fired, if you just got, if you just got out of a bad relationship or even a good one and you got heartbroken, ask yourself like, what are you going to do about it now? You should reflect. The feelings that we have as humans are real. They're emotions. Like we're not robots. I'm not a fucking robot. Like my thing is not on positive 100 every single day. But when I do reflect on the negative times or the bad days, it's not like we're like lashing it out on other people. It's me in solitude or even in times like this of counsel of reflecting and seeking like, where can I improve? So even on the bad days that are more day to day, whether it's working with my brother, with family, or dealing with employees, and like if I'm fucking up as a boss or as an entrepreneur, as a leader, I am more reflecting on like, damn, do I have the chops to do it? Like it's the internal conversation for me that happens, less of it being like, oh, I'm gonna be an asshole now to like the next person I meet. It's this internal game of like the levels of doubt and uncertainty that happen, whether as an entrepreneur, as a creator of like, am I going to make it? Can I actually make payroll next month? Can I do these things? A lot of times it's how we talk to ourselves that matters. So even on my bad days, Danny, it's the internal dialogue that happens, less of it being the external of like lashing out on other people and making my problems that are internal an external thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a reflection of maturity, and it must, like you get those emails from those brands, from Nike and Dick's Sporting Goods while you're on the plane to go to the biggest podcast appearance of your life.
100%.
And it's like, life will test you. And I listened to that podcast you did with Mark Bell, and it was great. You wouldn't even be able to notice that other than you mentioning it. If you didn't mention it, I would have known that you were in that situation. So I guess, what advice do you have for people who are going into the biggest thing of their life, and then right before they hear some bad news or something bad, like what was your frame of mind in that 24 hours?
Research. My framework was the opinions of the people that were writing the things about me were from a place of not really knowing like just the true story of it, right? So I don't know. It was such a weird spot, dude. I was fucking on this airplane. I get this text from my fucking agency, and they're like, Matt, don't post anything else from the race about Nike, about Dick's Sporting Goods. And I'm just like, oh shit, my heart sank to the floor. And I just closed my phone, Danny. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. We're taking off. To your point, then about to go on the biggest pod that I've ever been on. And to then actually execute that pod at a clip that I felt like I was on my shit. I felt like my frequency on that day with Mark Bell and Nsima was one of the better ones I've had.
It was great.
And even then, like I think this is what I would say. Seek out a positive peer group. Seek out counsel from other people to make you realize that we're human. This is a human game that we're playing, and we're gonna make mistakes. But you can't beat yourself up too much when you fuck up. Reflect on it, understand that, hey, I can learn from this and move on. And whether it was Jimmy DeSico from Super Coffee, whether it was Devin LeVake from ProMix and all his other businesses, or Mark Bell, the feedback I got from these guys was, hey, I've been there before. I've fucked up too. And all of us do. So don't beat yourself up. Like, today's a new day, it's a new opportunity. And that conversation from these other people and in my own internal framework helped me tremendously to not allow the past to dictate the future and the present. It would be really easy for me in that conversation with Mark and Nsima to just be, oh my God, like trying to protect my like space of like, oh my God, now I have eyes on me. Someone's probably gonna listen to this pod. I have to be careful what I have to say. And I think at times it's good that as a creator, as an entrepreneur, like I don't have a PR team. Like I'm my own PR team. I can dictate what I say, when I say it, where I say it. Versus some like actors or actresses might have to like, don't go on a podcast and talk about it because it's going to be too much in the limelight. The good thing with this scenario was like, it's like a little blip in the radar of, if me being a bib mule is one of the worst things I've done in the year, Danny, I'm okay with that, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think it's just me not beating myself up, but having a positive sounding board of other people that I respect and look up to, that were like, yo, like, it's okay. Like, we all fuck up. Like, what are you going to do about it now?
Yeah, it's interesting too. What I noticed from that podcast was Nsima, is that how you pronounce his name? He almost like came to your defense. And it's something that we don't think a lot about when we get punched on or we get put down in some ways. Like, that will often cause an equal and opposite reaction the other way by other people who have your back. And that was really cool to see. I'm curious about, like, have you contacted the guy who wrote the article? And it would be cool for you to do like a run with him. You know, I noticed like back in the day, there's this great Gary Vaynerchuk story about how he was doing Wine Library TV. Mm-hmm. And basically there was a guy who was like, you know, Wine Library TV is stupid. Like, this is the dumbest thing. Why would anyone do this? This was like 2006, 2007 when Gary was starting. 2009, Wine Library TV starts to blow up. And the guy who said it was dumb asked to be on Gary's show. And Gary was like, yeah, come on. And being the bigger person in that situation is something that I think you have in you, and I think would like just warm my heart and make me feel happy. You know, it's like, because I don't know the full situation or what happened, but just like the way the article was written when I was researching it, I was just like, there's something here that's like negative and like trying to put someone down for no reason. And yeah, it would just be cool to see.
I love the idea. And my ego is at the door always, Danny, and I would be fully willing and capable of interviewing this guy, Derek, from marathoninvestigation.com. And I think it's a great idea. To answer your question of, has there been any conversation? So after that Houston thing happened, 30 days later, I run in the Austin Marathon. And another article by Derek, the same guy, got written about my media team, because I had my brother and my other videographer, Chris, on bikes following me through the Austin Marathon. And obviously it's a hometown race. I'm friends with Jack Murray, who's the race director, and he gave my whole team access to media badges to get us through the finish line, allow us having some VIP stuff in like the end of the race. So like I made sure I dotted my I's, crossed my T's for the Austin race. An article got written though, because this lady got really upset within the first mile of the race. Every race, Danny, like it's the beginning, it's always very clogged, right? Like the bottleneck happens in the early races. And then after 2-3 miles, like it starts to spread out because people are running at their pace. If you're slower, you're kind of in your own pack, whatever, right? But in the beginning, it's a bottleneck. Everyone's running, everyone's excited. Probably people are running faster than they typically would. And my brother kind of cut someone off, like trying to get to the other side of the street on South Congress. And I always tell my brother, and anyone that helps record me, I'm like, yo, get as many shots as you can, but don't be compromising any runner in their space. Because runners are very type A. They're like, yo, I have to eat my gel at this mark. I need to eat this amount of water. I need to do all these things like to the T. I'm very much not like that. Like some races, I don't bring anything, right? But the point is, my brother ends up kind of like getting in the way of one runner, and she like spazzes out.
Did she get hurt?
No, like he didn't hit her, but like it was like a close enough call, Danny, for someone to be like, what the fuck? Like she got pissed. She's like, this race isn't about you. You have all these bikers getting in the way of all these runners. And I'm like, it seems like you're the only one upset. Like, I'm like, I apologize. Like, I'm like, he's off to the side. I told her, I'm like, look, I'm not telling them to do this. Like, this is, in that moment, my brother made a human error again of like, yo, just wait until there's a clear sight for you to get across, right? He wanted to get the shot, so he ended up not. And 24 hours later, Danny, Marathon Investigation, another article gets written of Instagram influencer has his media team cut off runners to get his shot. And something ludicrous again, right? The funny thing is, when that shit got posted again, it just sounded crazy of like, it was like a Karen moment of someone being that upset of like, at the end of the day, like, lady, you still ran your race. Like, that did not dictate if you were going to succeed or fail that day. But once again, I get it. You don't want to get interrupted on your path. It's your day. It's your marathon, 100%. The dude from marathoninvestigation.com, he DMs me and was like, he's like, Matt, like, we're trying to find out if you had media access for your team to be on bikes, X, Y, and Z. And I was talking to Jack Murray because Jack was telling me, he's like, yo, they fucking wrote another article, but he's like, I've totally got your back on this. Like, dude, we talked about it. Like, I had everything set up of like, yo, I'm going to have media at this course. So Jack had my back fully on this. And he talked to Derek from Marathon Investigation saying like, yo, I gave Matt access to have his people on bikes. Then Derek DMs me again because the first response I had was very short and quick. I was like, you talk to Jack Murray. And then he sends me another DM of like, Matt, we apologize. Like, we just spoke to Jack and he said that you guys had full access to do it with your team, X, Y, and Z. And I just like liked the message. I didn't even respond. I'm just like, you know what? Like in this, like, I don't need to like spit back anything. You know, I'm just like, all right, like this is the space we live in of media. It's all about speed and who's first. So something I reposted was a Denzel Washington thing of like, the problem with current media right now is that it's not about accuracy. It's not about really selling. It's not about really telling the story. It's about selling it. And if you have an opportunity to once again shit on another creator, an influencer that has a following that's in the running space that doesn't really look like most other runners, he took that opportunity. But I really would love a chance to run with Derek. So Derek, marathoninvestigation.com, if you want to come run with me in Austin, Texas, or wherever you live, let's make that happen.
Yeah,
it would be fun.
Yeah. I think people look at this and they say, like, they might look at your profile, what you've accomplished, and been like, looks pretty good. Like, all he had to do was overcome his mind. But then, you know, people might not expect for you to get torn down in this realm of, well, people don't want you to be exposing running like this. And to, like, that's a really remarkable thing because you put out so much positivity that there is a lot of negative backlash that's come your way as well. It's a little sad, but you know, that's life, and people will present you, or life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free, is a nice Peter Crone quote. And it's just like everything that is coming up right now for you is there to test you and to show you where you're potentially blocked in some way. And those articles, those people coming to take you down is just like another way in which you can say, like, I can learn from this. I can grow from this. And yeah, man, it seems like you're handling it the right way.
I love that you said that because I think at times, Danny, when that shit happens to other creators, it could be the kryptonite for them.
Absolutely. Dude, quick story. When I was 13 years old, I had a time management blog. And this woman wrote an article. She was like a 30 or 40-year-old woman, and she was like, there's no way this kid is writing this blog. This is an adult posing as a child. This is so fucked up. And I let that message get to me so much that I stopped blogging. And I'm like, oh, I didn't have the mental toughness at that point to push past her belief. She won in that situation. And I think, people will be going through this for the rest of time. So it's an important message to put out of like, no, like you could actually be stronger than that by overcoming it, by having love and empathy for that person, by understanding where they're coming from so that you can do the next thing, go do the next podcast, do the next blog post, do the next post in general. Because life's too short to live your life where somebody else who's trying to put you down is winning.
I love that, dude. You can't please everyone in this world, and you just shouldn't try to, especially in this space where you're allowing and you're open to feedback and criticism from people that you don't even know. And I think if you're a creator that's getting into this space, like that would be my biggest tip is like, be so confident and sure of yourself, of like what you're trying to do. And if your intent is good, always believe in that through and through, because there's gonna be people that are gonna bring you down. They're gonna try to tear you down, and they're also gonna uplift you and put you on a pedestal. But as like, it's almost like your duty to stay even keel. And I know it's fucking hard, dude. It's not easy to like be the bigger person, dude. Like for you at that moment, like you're young as shit. You're 13. So it's like where you're at now, I guarantee you would have been like, it would have been like a brush off your shoulder. But I understand why some people like it's new. There's no like blueprint of like, this is how you handle criticism. This is how you handle admiration, right? And I think there's part of like the maturation process for people that should happen as you put yourself out there, as you start to build your own business, and you're doing it without people even giving you the feedback that you're doing it. But as long as you don't skip those steps and try to like make the quick buck or get the quick fame, like the quick like path to fame, I think it allows you to build the callousing of dealing with the harshness, like dealing with all of those things, because it is fucking tough. It's not easy. And if it was, everyone would do it. And there's a reason there's a smaller of select people that do.
Yeah. One of the things that potentially could stop people and has stopped me in the past about putting out content is that I didn't want it to be about me. And I felt like there was a selfishness to like putting a camera in my face in some way. And that's kind of why I go for the podcast format. It's like I'm putting you on a pedestal or showing the light that you are, as opposed to showing myself. And I know that's a criticism that keeps popping up for you, is like, this guy makes it all about himself.
Yeah.
What do you say to those criticisms?
There's definitely, it actually makes sense. Like the criticism from the lens of the like from the external makes sense. Yeah, like I fucking run shirtless at these races, Danny. I get to monetize off my personal brand and my following. I get to go to races and like I know that there's a camera recording. Like I can understand that. But if people understood who I am as a human on the human level, when I was at my mom's house 3 years ago and I was the same person with the same level of humility, with the same level of kindness and empathy, they would understand that it's not true. And people that see me raw, people that see me in the flesh when I'm at places, in restaurants, at fucking races, every time someone comes up to me, I'm locked in, Danny. And like I'm just being human. It's not like I have a following and you don't know. It's just like, what's up? Like what do you have going on? Like what's your story type of fucking vibe, you know? But I understand why people will take that of like, oh, like it's all about Matt. He's going to this race. It's all about, but at the end of the day, at times I am building a brand, right? But the brand that is getting built, the impact that's getting made is so much more than just myself, right? And I think for other people, I don't expect everyone to understand that, and it's okay. But what fuels me is my own internal challenge of myself of like trying to improve at everything I do. And in this case, it might be running or in business. But along me doing that pursuit, people are getting impacted in a positive fucking way. And I would rather focus on that than people like, oh my God, Matt's selfish. He's a narcissist. He's all about him. Because at the end of the day, I know that it's not true. So I think it is hard for some people when you are becoming the main character of your story, which I believe that every fucking human should be the main character of their story. Like there's some levels of that's good. You should be proud that you're the person that's driving the ship. You should be proud that you're the person that's willing to take on these things that other people aren't willing to take on. And if you can then be a light for someone else to then allow them the opportunity to pursue, that's a beautiful thing. So I think I love when Gary says this shit of like him being the shield and the armor for people to do what they want to do in this world. So many people, like their parents say like, yo, go be the doctor, right? Me being an Asian, I actually got lucky that my mom wasn't always down that line. But so many of my friends, they had no choice but to be a lawyer, doctor, dentist, right? Like that was their only option. And when you have someone like Gary that's basically challenging the framework of most modern society of like, yo, you should actually chase after your passions, chase after your dreams, and use me as the shield to basically get you there, in the sense of Gary being someone that's going to give you emotional intelligence, give you the feedback of what it feels like to be disciplined and accountable and kind. Because honestly, a lot of parents aren't teaching their kids those things exactly, especially in the entrepreneur realm, right? Not like the kindness and empathy stuff, but being an entrepreneur, a lot of parents don't have familiarity in that. So of course they would say, go be a doctor or a lawyer. So to answer your original question of like what that feels like to kind of get shat on for being like a selfish or narcissist, at the end of the day, these are just opinions. Now, if you are those things, and then you're kind of like, you're fucked. Then you're like, oh shit, my intent is not good. But long before I got a following, I was this human that you're looking at right now, you know? And it's hard for me to sell that to you maybe, really, right? Even the people I meet, the people that are closest to me, family, my mom in particular, she's the one that if I hear that from her, that shit might hit me harder than someone online, because she actually knows. She saw what it was like when I was in her living room, in her dining room table, making that fucking creatine video when no one watched my shit, Danny, but having this internal belief in myself, but also being kind to people, showing up in a positive way. Like I did that years back, even when I played college football. So it's not like that part of me is like, oh, Matt's just this kind person because he's got a following, you know? So I think what I think about most is the people that are closest to me, if their opinion starts to then change because my actions are changing, I would have more room to like hear that really, versus someone that's just like, Matt's an asshole because he runs shirtless and he's just out here recording content of himself. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's how I feel.
No, I appreciate you laying it out there. It feels like a lot that was off your chest, like by saying that. What about your mom? What does she think now? She's seen the whole journey unfold.
She's super proud. Like a lot of the shit, Danny, that I've done, that I've accomplished, like I manifested in her fucking four walls. When I first moved back to my mom's house at 25, Danny, it was so, bro, who the fuck wants to move back to their parents' house at that age?
I did the same thing.
But it was one of the most rewarding times and opportunities for me to work on myself. The pandemic happened and you don't even want to be in the city anyways. So it, like, the timing of it worked out well, where I had a chance to really spend time with my mom, at a quality time with my mom at an age where I'm more mature, at an age where I'm able to be like, yo, like, this is what I want to work on. This is my passion. This is my dream. And at first, my mom was just kind of like, okay. Like, she understood and she looked up to people like Elon Musk. She told me to invest into Tesla early. So when I did that, I made that financial investment of like, oh shit, this is a company that is going to make a significant impact in this world. So my mom has always loved the entrepreneur spirit and the entrepreneur story, even though she was never in that case. And she knows, because of her knowledge of politics and the economy and business, that being an employee is not the way to true freedom. So with my mom knowing that, I started doing homework of, fuck, what does freedom really mean? What does it mean to own your fucking time? And yes, having a high salary job is dope, but if you're just having a high salary job and a high salary lifestyle, you're not really free. And I wanted to be free in this world, to also allow my mom to be free down the line. My biggest goal is to retire my parents, period. So what my mom thinks now, I know she is super proud, and I think the biggest thing she's proud of is like, I've stayed pretty fucking grounded through it all, Danny. And that's honestly what fuels me the most. Like, it would be easy for me to go get a Tessie, to get a fucking, like, to like really like get a luxurious shit, like materialistic bullshit. But I'm not about that. I don't want people to know what I have or what I don't have. And a lot of that is that I'm grounded in my own self-esteem. Like I don't need flashy shit to impress people that I don't even want to impress.
Dude, you got 2 watches on that.
I got 2 fucking watches though, Danny. I'm tracking my data. But yes, I would say I think my mom is super proud, and she's someone that I work my ass off because of her. And she's one of my biggest motivators by far.
What lessons are you going to take to your children, if you have them, from the positive and the negative sense about parenting that you learned from your parents?
I think the most positive thing is not telling your kids anything, but showing them. My mom didn't tell me to work hard, but I saw her do it. So that would probably be the biggest thing of like, I don't want my kids to play football because I played football. I want them to do what they want to do, but I want to challenge them and give them the resources to go accomplish it. I never got the best trainers in the world, but I didn't need them because I was willing to go practice on my own. I literally used to throw the football in the air, Danny, and go catch it myself.
And now you're making videos about that.
100%. At the same time, I played receiver in college, but I played quarterback in high school. So that opportunity of like really loving it, but it came from a place of, in this world, you got to work for what you get. And I saw my mom do that. And also my dad, even though I didn't grow up with my dad is a blue collar, like hard worker, period. And seeing your parents do that, they never had to tell you like, oh, go work hard in school or go work hard in sports or athletics or your hobbies. So in that sense, that would be probably the biggest thing I would take away on a positive end. On a negative end, I want to be present with my kids. Like what I see Brian Mazza do with his kids fires me the fuck up. I always tell Mazza, I'm like, dude, me and Mazza connected. Like, the first day I met him, we just like bonded. And I just knew that this was a good fucking human, not just because he's got a fucking following, but internally, he's just got a good heart. And seeing him with his kids, seeing him like be present, because my dad wasn't. My parents split when I was 3 years old. All I knew was a life with my mom. So my dad never came to my games. He came to my state championship game in high school. I played in 2 state titles in high school, a bunch of college games in Jersey, and he saw me play in person one time. And I've played over 100 games. I don't like have spite to my dads because of that, but I understand that for him, working and providing in that sense was how his value prop was played. He's also uncomfortable being around my mom's family, and like my mom's family would come to games, and for him, there's too much friction. So I understand it. But I want to be there. Like I want to go to the games, if it's a girl, the fucking cheerleading or gymnast, whatever the fuck it is. I want to be available and present through those times because I didn't get that. And I don't want to coddle my kids. I want to show them what it's like to fucking work hard, what it's like to build grit. I always have this mantra of like, be hard to kill. So much of my callousing, Danny, happened because I grew up with a single mom. Me and my brother didn't have babysitters a lot. We fucking would watch over ourselves. And luckily to my mom, we didn't burn the house down that many times. So I think it's hard for parents because they want to provide more to their kids than they had. I was on a podcast with my buddy Josiah, and that was that's what he wanted to talk about the most. He's like, Matt, you were in a college scholarship and you had no dad in your life. How'd you do it? And I was like, Josiah, it's because I loved it. My mom never asked me to practice. I fucking wanted to. She forced me to practice the violin and the piano, and I fucking didn't want to do it. So I told him, I said, the best thing I could tell you from the kid perspective is allow your kids to choose what they want and then allow them to be all in about it, because it won't burn out, or it'll burn out less. So I would say those are the 2 things. Show your kids, don't tell them what to do. Like, right? It's easy to tell your kid like, oh, like, go move your body, go play sports. But if you're sitting there drinking a beer every single night with your feet up after work and you're not moving or playing with your kids, how do you expect them to want to do those things? So I think you have to be the example in your own household. And then the layer of the negative side that I didn't get is just be present. Like that would be that's my shit.
Yeah, I have no doubt you're going to do that because you are so present. You're welcome on this podcast anytime. This flew by so fast, and speaks to your energy, enthusiasm, knowledge, and I'm so grateful for you coming here. I like to end these podcasts by asking the guests for a challenge to leave the audience with. They just listened to us for the past hour and a half, so what action can somebody take to the next part of their life, the next day of their life, their next week, month, year, what challenge do you have for somebody listening?
I would say for the next 30 days, I mean, even the next week, like, journaling might be hard for someone right now, but like, spend some time to like seek curiosity, period. Go find a book, listen to this pod, go find your favorite entrepreneur, business person, or just like a fucking nonfiction book. Like, go seek something that's out of your norm. And it could be reading 10 pages a day. It could be journaling for 1 page, but do something over the next 7 days that you have not been doing in the past couple months, period. And that could be in the gym, but do something that is out of your norm for the next week and see what opens up from there.
I love that. At MattChoi _6 on Instagram, at MattChoi6 on TikTok. Anywhere else you would like to send people to connect with you further?
Yeah, if you guys want to see any of the like longer form content, check out YouTube, just Matt Choi.
Awesome. All linked below. Thank you so much, Matt, for your time.
Dude, this is so much fun. I appreciate having me.